Lesson 4-5, we're going to be using proportions to solve problems. When we write proportions, it's like writing ratios and seeing if they're equal to each other. Remember we said proportional means equal. So using proportions, we are assuming that two ratios are equal and then using that assumption to solve for a missing quantity. So again, equivalent ratios would be like 1/2 equals what over 4? Well, we know that that what is 2 over 4 because we're saying they're equivalent ratios. So because we know what equivalent means, we knew that 1 over 2 is the same as 2 over 4. So I didn't give that to you right away, but that's, that's kind of what we're using here with the proportions to solve. So these two are equal proportions. So that's kind of telling you what a proportion is. Cross products is what we're going to be using to solve proportions, and we're going to actually cross multiply and then divide as we get into that further. And then the constant of proportionality, here the constant was 2. If we multiply by 2, whatever you do to the top, you have to do the bottom. So the constant of proportionality in this example here was multiplying by 2, again for this example. So a proportion is an equation stating that two ratios or rates are equivalent. So for this example, we have 6 over 8 equals 3 over 4. Here the constant of proportionality would be dividing by 2 to get to our new ratio here. So again, whenever we say proportions, we're assuming that they are equal. So for example 1, we have a couple different examples for us to look at. So in the first set, I told you we were going to do cross products, but sometimes you're going to actually be able to easily see how to get from one number to the other just by noticing some basic fact type things. So to get from, since I know these two numbers, but I don't know K, so I'm looking at to get from 56 to 8, I know that I have a factor of 8 happening in there. So if I think of a factor of 8 happening up here to get from 32 to K, I know that K is going to be equal to 4, because 4 times 8 is 32, 7 times 8 is 56. So you can sometimes do this without doing cross products. Again, we can look at it this way, going from 44 to 11, I know that I have a factor of 4 happening here. Okay, 44 divided by 4 is 11. So to go from here to here, I know that I'm going to have a factor of 4. I just need to figure out what number. This number over here was bigger, so it's going to be bigger here. So I know that 20 divided by 4 is 5. So in this case, P equals 20, because 20 divided by 4 is 5. So I could actually simplify 44 over 20 to equal 11 over 5 using that common factor. So those were a little bit easier. You could see that using basic facts without having to cross multiply or anything else. Now these actually get a little bit trickier because I can see from 25 to 30 there isn't like a quick and easy basic fact to get there. So we are actually going to use cross products here. So again, what we say is we cross multiply. So I'm going to go 25 times d, and I rewrite it as an algebraic equation, 25 times d, and then 6 times 30. Well, 6 times 3 is 18 with a 0. And then I need to divide by 25 on both sides because I want to get d by itself. So this is just a simple one-step algebra problem, 25d. How do I get rid of the 25? I have to divide both sides by 25, so that cancels. And I get d equals 2, and I can do 180 divided by 25, and that's going to give me 7.2. So d in this case is equal to 7.2, and that would have been pretty difficult to figure out what to multiply by to get that number. So in this case, we get 7.2 for an answer. And, to completely check this and everything, you could actually put those numbers in. You could take 6 divided by 25, so 6 divided by 25, and that gives us 24 hundredths. And then if we take 7.2 divided by 30, that also gives us 24 hundredths. So that kind of tells us there that those two ratios are equal because we divided them both out and they equal the same decimal. So again, here getting from 8 to 3.2 is going to be pretty tricky for us to do in our heads like we were doing with the top. So here we're going to want to cross multiply. So we're going to get 8 times A equals, and I know I'm going to have two numbers to the left of, or to the right of my decimal point here. So I'm going to get 3.5 times 3.2, and that's going to be 11.2 or 11.20 really. So with that, we were able to get 11.2 equals 8A, and so we can put that in here. And then we'll divide by 8 on both sides to get A equals, because 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 1 times A is A. That's the whole reason why we're doing this. So we're going to get 11.2 divided by 8, and that equals our 1.4. So if 3.5 is to 8, then 1.4 is to 3.2. So we have the same common thing happening from one number to the next. So for example 2, we have clothing. Melvin can decorate 8 t-shirts in 3 hours. At this rate, write and solve a proportion to find the time it will take him to decorate 20 t-shirts. So we have 8 t-shirts in 3 hours. Again, remember we said we're always going to put time on the bottom. So I'm going to say 8 over 3 is equal to, now we're going to write a proportion, and 20 t-shirts. Well, I had t-shirts on top, so I need to put t-shirts on top again, and I can put any variable there on the bottom. 8 to 20, that's not an easy basic fact, so I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply to get 8x equals 60. And then we're going to divide both sides by 8. So cross, multiply, and divide. So 8 divided by 8 is 1. 1x is x. And then 60 divided by 8 gives us 7.5 or 7.5 for x. So 7.5, and then we need to find our units. Remember, we were doing hours. So 7.5 hours is how long it's going to take him to do the 20 t-shirts. Cooking. Use proportions a lot in cooking when trying to make your recipes larger. A recipe serves 10 people and calls for 3 cups of flour. If you want to make the recipe for 15 people, how many cups of flour should you use? Well, in this case, I don't have time and I don't have money. So we need to just pick where we want to put the numbers. It does not really matter. I can put 10 people on the top and 3 cups on the bottom, just so long as you always put the people in the same spot and always put the cups in the same spot. You have to match up your ratios so that way they match. So we have 15 people. Well, that goes with the 10 people, so we have to put it on the top. So it wouldn't have mattered. If we would have put it on the bottom, it didn't matter. We needed to put that on the bottom. So we can have an X there. And to get from 10 to 15, that's not a really easy basic fact. We know there's going to be some sort of decimal involved. So let's go ahead and cross multiply and divide. We get 10x equals 45. And now we can divide both sides by 10. And dividing by 10 is pretty easy because we can just move the decimal. So we know we're going to get x equals 4.5 cups of flour. So the 10 divided by 10 was 1, and 1 times x is x. And then 45 divided by 10, we just move the decimal point 1 spot. So 4.5 cups of flour is how much we will need to serve 15 people. For example 4, Haley bought 4 pounds of tomatoes for $11.96. Write an equation relating to the cost of the number of pounds of tomatoes. How much would Haley pay for 6 pounds at the same rate? And then for 10 pounds. So it says write an equation, but we can write a proportion. We do have money, so let's put money on the top. So we're going to have $11.96 over 4 pounds. And we want to know, what is that going to be equal to when we want to buy 6 pounds? And then we also want to know, what is it equal to when we buy 10 pounds? So we're gonna find for 6 first, and then we'll figure out what we need to do to find for 10 pounds. So To get from 4 to 6, it's not really easy to do, so we can just cross multiply. We get 4 times x equals, and we want to do 6 times 1196. And that equals $71.76, or just 71.76. And then we need to divide both sides by 4, divide by the coefficient. So we get x equals, and if you left that number in your calculator, all you have to do is hit divided by 4, and we get 17.94. So that's going to cost us $17.94 to do 6 pounds of tomatoes, based on the same rate there. So now if we want to do it again, we're going to do 1196 over 4, and then equals to x over 10. Again, cross multiply, so we get 4x equals 119.6, because we're multiplying by 10. We just move the decimal point. Divide by 4, and we get x equals, and we can take 119.6, and we're dividing that by 4 to get $29.90. We have $29.90. Don't forget your dollar sign. And that's how much it's going to cost us for 10 pounds of tomatoes at the same rate. So here where it said write an equation, these are kind of the equations here. It says 4x equals 71.76, and here 4x equals 119.6. So that kind of helps us there solve the problem using those proportions and equations. If you'd like more practice with this, take a look at the online tutors, and also be sure to check the step-by-step homework helper located on Moodle.